when you're winning. Get a goal, it's just the beginning. You gotta sing when you're winning. Everywhere you go. Everywhere you go. You gotta sing when you're winning. Get a goal, it's just the beginning. Sing, sing when you're winning. Everywhere you go.
Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Sing When You're Winning, a Fantasy Football League oddity podcast featuring distant cousins of podcast royalty and a very special guest this week who we will reveal very shortly. Waiting in line for the podcast throne once again this week are myself, Jamie, we've got Steve, we've got Lee, and we've got Chris. Now, this week, I want everyone to introduce themselves, the name of their team, and in honour, we mentioned this briefly last week, but in honour of McDonald's bringing back the McRib, thanks to Lee, what's the one thing you'd like to bring back, food or drink, from the past? If you could bring one thing back, what would it be? I'll start. In the early 90s, don't know if you remember, Mars had a thing called the Applause Bar. Most people cannot remember it. It was my favourite chocolate bar when I was about 10 or 11. And they were made of, it was a biscuit and it was raisins, nuts and apple caramel. And it was lush. And then they just binned them off like after about 2 years. So yeah, that's apple. Yeah, it was nice. It was dead nice. But anyway, I enjoyed the Applause Bar, but no one's heard of it. I Googled it again today to prove that it did exist and it wasn't a figment of my imagination. Who wants to go next? Chris is like, no, not me. I can't think. Lee, go on, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay, my name's Lee Cooper. I'm manager of the Angry Drens. I'm glad you put that in of food or drink, because I was going to say I want to bring sexy back. In any case, I'm going to go with the Texan bar. I think I've mentioned it before on it. I used to love a Texan bar when I was a kid. A man's got to chew what a man's got to chew. That'd be mine.
Texan bar sounds good. We're all heading to the sweet shop by the sounds of it. Steve, how about you?
He started a theme off now, hasn't he? I'm Steve. I'm manager of the boys, and we're in the top division. SWYW. I can remember when I was a kid, like the 80s, there was a gobstopper, but it came in a little box, and it was a dinosaur egg, and it was huge, and it was like 2 inches high or something, and about inch and a half wide, and it would take you about a week to suck it. And they were amazing. It was quality. They were about 10p. It was absolute value. So if you could get one of them back, man, it wouldn't be any good for your teeth. It probably got banned for those reasons. But yeah, they were great. Yeah,
a dinosaur egg you could suck. Love it. And Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I'm Chris. My team's the Cynical Time Wasters. Yeah, you mentioned McDonald's. I'd bring back Wimpy. The burgers from Wimpy were amazing.
They're still around. Wimpy is still around.
Yeah, are they?
Yeah, I think. I saw something about. I was telling my kids about it recently. I think there's something like 4 in the country. There's 4 in Britain or something left.
All right, so there are 4 of them.
Seek them out, Chris. Get yourself on a road trip.
Go on a road trip, yeah.
Are they the same?
There's 58 Wimpys, and there's some in Scotland as well. Yeah.
I'm not in
3
Scotland.
I know, but you've got a Scottish accent, so yeah, there's 53.
Yeah. No, what I liked about a Wimpy was the size that they cut the onions. Really, really small. It was, it just kind of worked. The mouthfeel was good, as they say.
As they say. It's that well-known saying, the mouthfeel is good.
The mouthfeel was good.
Love it. I wasn't a fan of Wimpy, probably because of the onions. I don't like onions. So
you didn't like the mouthfeel?
No, not at all. Not at all. Right, let's introduce our special guest who, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a reason why we can't see him, is because he insisted on coming on naked. And we're like, that's not happening. That's not happening. So he's in the dark, but we can hear him. I'm delighted to say this week's special guest is one of England's greatest ever cricketers. Among many huge achievements, he's both an Ashes winner and the first spin bowler to take 50 wickets in one calendar year. He can correct me if any of this is rubbish. Those of you who are less familiar with cricket might also recognise him from his time in Strictly Come Dancing back in 2018, when he finished a very respectable 7th place. Let's give a warm Sing When You're Winning podcast welcome to Graeme Swann.
Thank you very much, fellas.
Hello.
Thank you for having me on. I was waiting. I was wondering and waiting when I was going to get the chance to come on. I've been planning this big naked enterprise. But the truth is, I am so useless at all communications and all anything electrical. I don't know how to work the camera on my computer. I have had my secretary have a look at it as well, who is my wife, but she couldn't sort it either. So I apologise. You don't get to see me. I'm sat in a Newcastle shirt. My team, by the way, is called How's That? A clever play on Eddie Howe. They were formerly Offspin United, but after 2 seasons of struggling in the doldrums, in the relegation areas, I thought a change of name, change of fortunes. It has not worked.
Early days, very early days.
I thought, but the worst thing is, I thought I'd clocked it this year. I actually did some homework before the season, and I won 2 of my first 3 games, and I thought I've clocked this, and I've been on a horrible spiral ever since. Well, 2 golf holidays that have got in the way of it, really, but I'm back to where I belong, bottom 3.
So have you been picking your team from a golf course somewhere sunny? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, it was actually, I'm going to make you jealous here, because the golf trip I just went on it's former international cricketers against former international footballers.
Nice.
And it's basically the biggest lash up in Portugal, and all businesses pay to come and play with us. So I get to hang out with my boyhood heroes. And when I say boyhood heroes, I'm talking Rob Lee and John Beresford.
Yeah.
I literally had posters of them both on my bedroom wall. And now I get to play golf with them. And we won. The cricketers won for the 3rd year in a row since I adopted the Iain Dowie scoring method for golf. We're unbeatable.
What's the Iain Dowie scoring method?
Yeah, no matter how many shots you take, you just write 4 down. There we go. You end up with a lot of points.
Love it. Cool. So, how long have you been playing fantasy football, Swanny?
Well, so the very first one in the Daily Telegraph, what was that, 25 years ago? I remember me and my brother doing it and cutting out the coupon and everything. And I think I finished about 1 millionth in the country. And then my mate, Andrew Chester, who's no polo, no party, he got me involved a couple of years. He badgered me for a couple of years. He said, "You've got to come in this league. It's great. And you're the only famous person I know, and you have to come in for me." And it was around about my 40th birthday. I went, "You know what, Chester, I'd love to get back involved." And I'm glad I did, because being a cricket player and being involved in another sport, you follow football, but you follow your own team. You don't really follow it. And ever since, I've become immersed in not only the Premier League, but I also watched that highlight show afterwards till about 3 a.m, going through all the leagues and all the goals going in.
Yeah,
I must say, some of the grounds in League Two this time around are absolute shit pits, aren't they? Oh, I mean, I've never been to Barrow, and I'm sorry if you're Barrow fans out there, but my word, your ground looks dreadful.
It's a tough drive, that, as well, to Barrow. It's like the longest cul-de-sac in Britain.
I've been to Rotherham away, the old Rotherham ground, and that's the worst ground I've ever been to. But I think Burton does't look much better. That's vegan, isn't it? I'm not going there.
Have you never been to Hartlepool? Hartlepool's terrible.
No, I've never been to the pools. Although I do like Hartlepool used to have an advert on the radio whenever I was in the Northeast, and it went, "If you support one of the big 3 and they're playing away this week, why not come and watch Hartlepool?" Or was it Darlington? One of them, Darlow or Hartlepool, had that advert, and it's the greatest advert I've ever had.
I went there. I went there about 30 years ago, and I think half of the ground was sort of porta cabins, and then at half time, all the home support switched ends. They all walked around the stand and came to the other end.
Still do that in non-league games, yeah. It must have been Hartlepool, because I was close to Darlow, and I don't think I've heard that advert. So it must have been Pooley. Must have been. I think someone should pick up a TV show though, and have Swanny shit tips and go around football.
Honestly, do you watch it much midweek television on the Discovery Channel? Every celebrity ever has got a TV show doing something, but there's not been a shithole football grounds.
Exactly.
Everyone would watch it. Everyone our age would watch that.
They would.
It's just talking about how crap this pie is this week, the parking, the train ride there, the threat of impending violence. You could have a scale, it'd be brilliant.
This is Alan Partridge-esque, isn't it? This
It is Partridge-esque, but it would genuinely work. It would be brilliant.
Swanning around shitholes.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Monkey tennis, swanning around shithole.
We've got the title for this week's pod already. Swanning around shitholes. It's going to be there. Cool. So we've got some breaking news this Friday morning at the time of recording. Obviously, this goes out on Friday, and nobody in the world knows until now that Thomas Tuchel is the new England manager. So yeah, breaking news. What do you think about that?
Wow.
Well,
I'm over the moon. It's not Eddie Howe, so I'm happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, my lad Finn's over the moon because he put 10 quid on him at 20-1 in the summer. So
good lad.
Well done him. Happy days.
Is that when he
Might get a
announced
pint
he was leaving?
Yeah, it was soon as Southgate left. Yeah.
Chris just looks speechless.
I know. I was about to say that. There's a hand on the head in the corner that's saying, "Oh my god, like this is the end of days. What's going on?"
No, just it's Scotland fan.
Well, yeah, obviously, but it's just I personally think it's a strange. I think it's a strange appointment, but hopefully it'll work out. But,
I heard on the radio Scotland haven't won for 15 games or something, have they?
Oh, they're absolutely atrocious. But I suppose I don't know. Maybe some managers are more kind of designed for international management rather than club management. I mean, Southgate didn't exactly set the world alight, but he was in club management. But he was knockout, I think, for
I do, yeah,
for England.
Compared to all that went before.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at Capello and
Sven. Allardyce.
Yeah, I was actually photographing a gig in Manchester the night before the newspapers came out with all the stories about Sam Allardyce and which led him to lose his job. He was there. He was actually in all in the posh seats. He was at the Victoria Warehouse in Manchester, and we were all watching Primal Scream, I think, and and he was up the back, kind of swanning around with his hangers-oners, and little did he know that the Sunday Sun or whatever it was called was going to absolutely stomp on him the next day. Bless him.
Yeah. Well, if we hadn't had Allardyce, we wouldn't have had Southgate. That's the way it's gone.
Yeah.
Just going back, before you carry on, I didn't get to say which sweet or drink I'd want to bring back.
Yes.
And it's killing me here because does anyone remember? Does anyone? I mean, I'm so relieved that Eddie Howe's staying at Newcastle that I'm happy now. So I'm going to my happy place. And if anyone else remembers Lilt, Mango and Mandarin, it was sensationally good.
It was the best
and the advert with "Here lobsters on South Beach, man," and the English tourist tickle pink on the beach. Yeah, it was incredible. Bring it back, please. Starburst changed back to Opal fruits for about 3 weeks last year. Yeah, and had the lemon and lime sweets, the old school Opal fruits. That was a great time in my life. But if I could bring back anything, it would be Mango and Mandarin Lilt. If you're listening, Coca-Cola Schweppes.
Get on. It was the superior version of Lilt, wasn't it? Although you can't get Lilt now, they've made it. It's
changed. It's now Fanta, isn't it? It's weird.
No, it's not the same, is it? It's not quite the same.
No.
Yeah, they just rob our childhood as each day goes by. Not that we're bitter middle-aged men on the podcast at all. But yeah, I was just going to ask Sonny, as we were talking about England football, do much of the England cricket lads get behind the England football team a lot, or is it just classed as another sport and obviously you're too busy involved in what
Not so much. I do remember we went to Wembley once, the new Wembley, and England were just playing, and we were in the tunnel, so we were walked on, paraded on before the game, and it was one of those midweek friendlies, so it's just like 60,000 school kids, and then like John from Peterborough who got a ticket, people like that.
Yeah,
and it was the most underwhelming sort of reception you've ever received. But as we went off, David Beckham was in the tunnel, and the lads were genuinely starstruck by David Beckham. All I could think of, he's got tiny feet. He had really small feet, and because he's a footballer, I mean, cricket players tend to be quite tall. I'm 6'1", and I'm the smallest in the team by about 4 inches, and everyone just towered over him. And I think another one of our managers, Tim Bresnan, he was there as well. I think that's the only person Brez ever recognised because he's daft as a brush. And that was Beckham over there. Look at that. But yeah, but all the lads are massive on football. I've got a brilliant football story actually, because my mate KP. So me and KP, we're not particularly strong friends. But there's one thing, and he'll hate me for saying this, but it's still one of the funniest things I've ever heard. So to prove he was English and how English he was, he pretended to be a massive Chelsea fan, and he lived next door to Frank Lampard, I think. And so he was going on about, I love football as much as any of you guys. I know as much as any of you. So Jimmy Anderson said, all right, what's your favourite goal you've ever seen? Mine would be that Marco van Basten volley over his shoulder. Unbelievable strike. And KP turned around and goes, stop taking the piss, Jimmy. You're making up names like Van Basten, thinking I won't know this is his name. And it was still a joyous moment.
I'm sure he's not listening.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Brilliant.
It was glorious, though. But yeah, but as far as England football goes, I don't, we're like anyone. We get behind the team during the summer, during any tournament, and we complain about Southgate's ridiculously negative tactics. And I just personally, I wish Baz McCullum and Ben Stokes had been in charge during the Euros, because I think we'd have absolutely walked it.
Imagine that. Bazball in football would be phenomenal, wouldn't it?
Well, with the team we've got, it would be. If you just put them on the field, right, go crazy, lads, just express yourselves. They'd win everything.
Yeah.
On paper, they're incredible at the minute.
It might, exactly.
That's what Carsley did against Greece, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was Carsley. Come on.
Yeah, but no Anthony Gordon, though. So if Gordon's not on, it doesn't count.
Should we have a look at, let's have a bit of a preview of Game Week 8, and then we'll come back and ask you some more random questions, Swanny, if that's all right.
Yes,
so
of course.
Let's look ahead to Game Week 8, starting with some transfers, because there's quite a lot of transfers in and out as ever on the app. So if you want some top tips this week, the most transfers in is Mbeumo from Brentford. He's top of the getting people in. Almost 250,000 people have transferred him in. Saka is second, and Brennan Johnson is third. Probably not too surprising because he's on a bit of a goal run. Most transfers out, if you want to get rid of somebody, Luis Diaz is top, João Pedro second, and a lot of people ditching Mo Salah. So I think I've gone down the Mo Salah ditching route as well.
Is that to get Cole Palmer?
I've already got Palmer in, but I just thought he was just a waste of money, really. But watch him score a hat-trick this coming weekend.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's what will happen. But yeah, Steve, do you want to look ahead to some big games across the Sing When You're Winning league?
I will, seeing as we've got no results to go on. We'll start at the bottom league in the Conference League. Then top of the table, Vicky Sparks is playing Natalie Pike, who's now 8th. She was flying at the top, but she's now drawn and lost in the last few games. Ben Halliwell in 3rd is playing George Pearson, who is 6th. Finn is now up to 10th. He's playing Grace, who's 7th. 2nd place, Duke Witter should expect to beat Paul Tonkinson, who's still not made any transfer and is now 19th. Sophie Ridge, she's looking to get back to form. She won last week after a bit of a bad spell. She's playing Adam, who's 18th in the league, so she should win that. And Neil Robertson and Joe Singleton, who are both expected to be near the top of the table at the end of the season, and they're both in the bottom half at the moment, so they're having a bit of a struggle. They're playing each other. And pointless Chris Murray at the bottom is playing Casey Hawkes, so he's hoping for him to help him out there. League One, the leader is Jamie Hurst. He's playing a free-falling Steve Wybrandt, who started well but is now near the bottom. Lee Nicholson is playing Bresnan, and that's the only game that's between two teams in the top half of that division. Chesney, 007, is hoping to avoid becoming 008. He's playing Rich Pipes, who unfortunately is second, so it's possibly not going to happen. And there's clashes in the bottom half for Nathan, last week's guest, who's playing Magic Ben. And Ben got together with the Blue Tones the other night. You might have seen on Twitter or the chat. And Stu, who wears no pants, of course. Bit like Swanny tonight. And he's playing Mike Bushell, who continues to keep winning and is near the top of the table. Championship. Jamie, you're playing Nick, my wife. And she's looking to build on winning. She was in a bit of a panic for a couple of weeks, but then she beat Swanny last time out, so she said to thank you for that, Swanny.
No, my pleasure.
It made the atmosphere a lot nicer in our house. In a fantasy league way.
She got me in the middle of that golf trip. I think my child could have beaten me last week.
Well, that's a good excuse. She should be happy about it anyway. At the top, Tom Gregory's 3 points clear. He's playing Cole Jenkins, who is now up to 8th place. Did he beat you, Lee, last time, I think?
I don't know. I cheated. That's all I know. So I care about.
Yeah. It seems that long ago we played a game. I can't remember. Chasing him, Jim Daly's playing Mark Morris, who is in 15th at the moment. Dave Atkins and Phil Pinder are playing each other. They're usually in the bottom half, but they're both towards the top. And at the moment, there's a grudge match for Andrew Clancy versus Henry Mullen. They're 3rd and 7th at the moment. And at the bottom, joint bottom, lots of teams on 6 points. So there's a 6.6 pointer, if you like, for Swanny and Griffin.
Oh, good, Swanny.
The Swan versus the Griffin.
Griffin hasn't won since he was manager of the month, though, has he?
No, I think he was top and manager of the month and everything. Now he's lost about 4 games in a row or something. So, Lee, you've got Joe, who was on the other week. He's 10th, and that's in the race to get out of the bottom. That's to quote the Spice Girls. Premier League. The champion and current leader, Mark Summerton, is playing Ben Shires, who is in mid-table. And second place, Neil Martin, is playing the pre-season favourite, Alistair Bruce Ball. Nikolai is playing Adam in what's as close as we're ever going to get to a Danish derby there between those two. Nikolai actually being Danish, Adam's wife being Danish. And Adam once told me a story there that his wife, before Nikolai was famous, used to serve him in Blockbusters in a remote village in Denmark.
Brilliant link.
Last season's title rivals, Tom Bird and Michelle Gale from Division 2 meet each other in the Premier League this year. Faris is bottom. He's going to Jersey to play Chris. And Dan, who's not gone on today, he's playing John Gregory, who is 23rd in the league, so it's a big game for Dan to need to win that one. And Chris, you've got Leon, who's not doing very well, but he's had a lot of chips played against him, and I think he's piping about that. So it'll be a tough game for you.
Yeah, every game's a tough game for me at the moment.
Well, yeah, I feel it. Yeah, I'm on a win-lose cycle at the moment.
I think a lot of people are, though, because the big scorers and the big scorers are kind of on off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like I had a really good plan going into the start of the season. I was sticking to it. I still haven't taken a hit and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just falling apart. And now I'm kind of going, right, I've played my wild card. I've got 1 transfer. I want 7 changes. This is bullshit. I want tennis fantasy league or something.
You're not alone. Yeah, we were looking at Chesney's team last week, wasn't it? And I thought Chesney probably needs to play a wild card. And I looked and he already played it. So
too loyal.
we have a look at
West Ham.
He is too loyal to West Ham. But they had a good week, and he still couldn't get a win, even with the West Ham players he had.
No.
But shall we have a look ahead to the actual proper footy? 3 games. I always pick 3 games. As Swanny's on, I've gone for Newcastle Brighton. What do we think?
This season's been a bit of a damp squib for me. I'm so excited for the last 2 years how well Newcastle are playing, and I'm a bit like Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe looks a bit perplexed at the minute as to why his team just aren't playing as well as they should. We had an easy start to the season, and at home I think we'll beat everyone. So I'm putting us down for a win, but they're not setting the world on fire. Perhaps this is the week. Okay. Anthony Gordon naturally gets his mojo back, forgets about that penalty miss against Everton that he owes me a television for that because I put my foot through it. And they can get back going, because without Isak, Newcastle are one of these lovely looking teams that just look completely blunt at the moment, which is a bit painful for a fan.
Well, in 7th place, though, it's not,
Yeah. As I say, because we did have an easy start to the season. So I'm happy to be there, because we had a tough start last year and it was looking very grim. We were about 13th at this stage and then went on a great run. But as soon as we can get any centre forwards fit and firing, then I think we'll be all right. But it's been a less than exciting start, really.
Do you think Howe will be under pressure if they don't get Champions League this year?
He might. Well, such as football is, he probably will be. But I definitely hope not. Because I think they've done everything brilliantly since getting in bed with the Saudis, which, by the way, I'm fine with, because it's happened to Newcastle.
I think you're right. I think Newcastle will beat Brighton that this weekend, definitely. What about Southampton, Leicester? Are either of them going to start the season this weekend?
I'm going to go for Leicester win, only because of the fact that last year Enzo Maresca was my next door neighbour last year.
Really?
So the house next door to me is just footballers living in it. So Craig Burley owned it, and he's just sold it to Barry Bannon. But last year it was rented out. Enzo Maresca lived there, and 2 things happened that I should tell you about that are funny. One, his wife came around with her little kids to say hello to my wife and our kids at one point. And his wife's an ex-Spanish supermodel. She's one of the best looking women you've ever seen. And as she walked off, my wife turned to me, "Oh, she's got dark hair. She's not really your type, is she?" Which was brilliant. Which made me say for me, obviously. But the other thing that happened, he is one of the most miserable men in the world, by the way. I never saw him smile all the time I lived there. I was lying on my couch one morning. I think I was hungover. And my youngest daughter was there just like talking to me. So she could see over my head out of the window. She went, "Daddy, there's a bald man in the driveway." And I went, "What?" And I turned around and his electric gates weren't opening. And so he'd crawled through the trees. And he was waving at my window so I could let him out of my gates. And that was basically the only time I met Enzo Maresca in the 6 months he lived here, was to let him out my gates. And I offered him a fob for my gate. And he went, "No, it will be fixed." And off he went. That was it. So it wasn't until...
With a smile.
Did you have clothes on that day?
Yeah, and it wasn't until the end of the season when Leicester won, I was away one day, and my wife phoned me up in a panic saying, "I think there's a robbery or something next door, or football hooligans trying to smash the house down next door." And my son had gone outside with a cricket bat. He was ready to kick off. He was ready to defend the house, everything. And it was the Leicester City players who'd come back to the gaffer's house to have a big piss up when they got promoted. But as I said, Enzo's done now. But I think they'll win this week because of that.
Good. Well, we'll look out for Leicester this weekend. And the last one, obviously, big game of the weekend, Liverpool against Chelsea. What do we think?
Ooh. Well, again, that could be 4-4, couldn't it?
Yeah, I see goals in this one. I've already pushed the button on getting rid of Diaz, and I've got Robertson and Trent, so I'm going to be benching Robertson, I think. Ooh. Just because it feels weird benching a 6 million defender, but no, I think there's going to be goals anyway.
Yeah.
I got rid of Salah, so he's going to get a hat-trick. So,
standard.
He probably will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't like to call it, to be fair. Chelsea, just blow hot and cold week in, week out. If they're on one, it could be a good game.
Yeah.
So long as Palmer scores, I don't really care.
See, I've got a couple of weeks before I can get him in. I need to do some. I'm going to try this season not to take any hits at all. It'll be the first time I've ever done it. But yeah, so I've got him penciled in for a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, he's so good. He's so good. He's like when you watch him, it's like watching, how you wanted to play as a kid. Do you know what I mean? Just, with absolute, he's so relaxed. He's so quick. His feet are so quick. Yeah, he's knockout. Really knockout.
Class player. And Swanny, what do you think? Liverpool, Chelsea, or do you not care?
I don't really care, to be honest. They're two teams that I've never seen Newcastle beat live, which pains me both, because Chelsea was shit last year, and we went down to the Carabao Cup game, and we should have won that Carabao Cup last year, and we got 1-0 up, and then tried to go back to old school, keeper kicking at everything, and then Trippier cocked up in the last minute, and they equalised, and then penalties. It was awful. I will say though, Chelsea's one of the best away days. As a away fan, it's one of the best views you get in the Premier League, right behind the goal halfway. I love going to Stamford Bridge. I don't enjoy the walk back to the station too much in the dark with my son, with his Newcastle, singing his Newcastle song. So I say, mate, just keep your voice down a little bit, mate. I know you're 12 and you're excited and you've seen Football Factory, but they're not going to swing at you, mate. And that dark walk back to Wells Court, I was going, just keep your mouth shut, Will. Yeah, it'll be 2-2, I reckon, 2-2. I think Liverpool are going to win. I've got a funny feeling they will, but I think they'll draw this game.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all.
Chris would never curse his team that way.
Nah.
So, shall we have a bit? We'll have a bit more of a chat with you, Swanny. We'll start off with. I ask everybody this who comes on. Why do you support Newcastle United?
So, my dad's family, are all from Blythe, which is the modern day drugs capital of the northeast, apparently. And as a little lad, I like the blue team who were in the FA Cup final, and my brother liked the red team. So I'd like Everton, he liked Liverpool. In the 85 Cup final, 84, whatever. It would be 85. And on Boxing, so for Christmas, I got the blue kit, the little NEC blue kit, and my brother got the Crown Paints Liverpool one. Granddad Wilfred from Blythe came down on Boxing Day and walked in the door, said to me, Dad, Raymond, what's that? What are the boys wearing? He went, how are you, Dad? They're only young. He goes, no, stand up, take your shirts off, lads, give them here. You'll get your football strips in a couple of weeks. Boys in this family support Newcastle United. Girls can do it in the lake. Boys support Newcastle. And so that was it. And they were rubbish at the time as well. And so I they've never won anything apart from the Championship and League One since I've supported them. But as soon as, I went to the game, and when I got to do that with my son as well. So forced him to be a Newcastle fan. We live in Nottingham. All his fans are Forest fans. Because Nottingham is one of those towns where everyone supports the local team. There's very few Man City fans or Liverpool fans out there.
Yeah.
And his first ever game, I was doing a thing for Bobby Robson Foundation. So I was on the field at half time with one of those oversized checks with Lady Elsie Robson. And I took Wilf with me. And he was interviewed by the ground announcer, saying, what do you think the score will be, young man? He went 3-0 to Newcastle, and they won 3-0. And some fella came up to him afterwards and said, I put £2 on when you said that. Now I won £15. So he was treated like a king. He was given a strip. He was like sat in Rafa Benitez's chair at the time. He was the gaffer. He was sat in his chair as he came out, like high-fiving the players. So he was Newcastle absolutely for life. But I did take him to Forest the week after just to be fair, because it's his local club. And it got to about 10 minutes before half time. He said, Dad, I want to go home. I'm so bored. And so I was a bit gutted for all my mates who were sat around me, but I was absolutely over the moon deep down. So Newcastle United all the way. How are the lads?
Good stuff. And what would you say is the highest point of supporting Newcastle and the lowest point?
Highest point has to be coming home from playing for Toaster Town Juniors where I'd scored a couple of goals, and my mum and dad refused to watch me play football because Northampton's a rugby town, so I should have been playing rugby apparently. But I walked home, and we had a bay window by the front door, and I ran back to try and get the end of Newcastle Man United that was on the TV. And I missed the end of the game, but I could just see the TV through the bay window. I could see Alex Ferguson's face bright red, and he was spitting venom at the camera. He was that angry. And I walked in, and my dad was almost in tears. With son, we've beaten 5 now. It's unbelievable. And so that, I mean, that has to be, because at the time, Man United were simply sort of unbeatable, and that was just incredible for me. And then the lows would be very soon after that. You know, they've got to go to Middlesbrough on Thursday. I would love it if we beat them right now. I would love that. King Kev, my hero, King Kev. Oh, having his breakdown.
Yeah. See,
and then the entire Ashley era, but I've buried my head in the sand. That never happened.
Yeah, let's not go through the Ashley. I was working in Newcastle at the time, and I don't think there's a more hated man than Mike Ashley at the time, to be fair. But as a Borough fan, I remember when Keegan was saying that, and I just burst out laughing because obviously Brian Robson was managing Borough at the time. We had nothing to play for.
Yeah,
and I was like, because Robbo's not going to do Alex Ferguson a favour. There was no way that we were going to beat Manchester United that day. We've got a cracking record against Man U. But just that day, it was never going to happen. Sadly.
Yeah, that was devastating.
Sadly not. But right, everyone has to. We give everyone homework when we have a guest on. So everyone's got to have a question prepared to ask you. So we'll go around. Right. The first question's from me. So just go with this one. What's the strangest request you've ever had on a tour rider?
On a tour rider?
Yeah.
So, well, the strangest request I'd ever have, for me, I'm very, very superstitious. Yeah. Indeed. So, I mean, it's not really a request on a tour rider because we don't do those sort of things. But I used to drive all the time. I'd drive Jimmy Anderson to the games because he's quite superstitious as well. And we didn't have a team bus. So from the hotel to the ground, you get yourself there. Okay. And this was a Sunday. We were playing in London at Lord's, and we were staying on Regent Street in a very posh hotel, the Langham Hotel. Mm-hmm. And I drove, and there was a diversion that day that took us through Camden. So you can imagine, if you know London at all, it's not a massive diversion, but it's probably 2 mile diversion. But it only took 20 minutes, and we got there in time. And I got 5 wickets on this day. And so the next day, I said to him, Jimmy, we're going to have to go the same way, mate, because I'm superstitious. And he was like, yeah, all right, no problem. Because as long as Jimmy was in the car, I mean, we had an unbelievable playlist on that we had to listen to the same playlist every day. It was all indie. It was a lot of Oasis, Blue Tones, White Lies. It was just, it was an unbelievable place. So we didn't mind, but it took us 2.5 hours because it was Monday morning. And so for an Ashes Test match, me and Jimmy Anderson turned up to Lord's literally about 7 before play started, and we were fielding. I had to sprint up to the stadium with our coach just like looking at us, shaking his head in disbelief, saying, "What the fuck are you doing? I went, I'm so sorry, traffic." And we ran onto the field, and I think Jimmy got a wicket in his first over or something that day as well, and we were just laughing about it all day. So my strangest request would have been, you always have to travel with me, and we always have to go a superstitious direction.
You have to go by Camden whenever you go to Lord's. That's the way we should be doing it. Good stuff. Who's got a question for Swanny? Who's prepared one? Chris.
Hey, Swanny. So I'm a photographer, and I had a job a couple of years ago. I had to go up to the northeast and photograph Ryan Sidebottom.
Yeah.
It was for this kind of like a face paint. You know, you'd paint your face like the England flag. Yeah. But it was sunblock, and that was the whole thing. So it was. I'm wondering, and I'm not sure if they were a sponsor of a particular team or whatever. I know he was just about to go out to India at that point. But what's the strangest request that you've had from a sponsor? What stuff you've had to hold, places you've had to be because you've been sponsored by a particular brand. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's a good question actually. Brand wise, there's a lot of Indian sort of sponsorship that came in while I was playing, so I get a lot of very strange requests from Indian brands whenever I was there. But they all, as soon as I did Strictly, and then went to India, every single request would be, you have to do some Bollywood dancing. You have to do this, have to do that. Now, Bollywood dancing is fine because if you give yourself over to it, if you commit 100% and you look like you're happy, you can pull off any move. But to do that, you have to be the ultimate extrovert. And I mean, I am extroverted, but to get the courage in front of like 2 billion people to just go, sod it, I'm going to throw myself into it. And the first couple of times I did it, I had to go out. I'd never met Irfan Pathan, who was the opening bowler for India, who had done an Indian dancing competition. And I turned up, and it was the company I was working for, Star Sports, just said, right, you're doing this. It goes out in 2 minutes. And I had a Bollywood choreographer who it wasn't doing it as a laugh. It was serious for him. This was a serious bit of work for him. So he was bollocking the shit out of me whenever I kept getting it wrong in rehearsal. And it was off I mean, people talk about Strictly dancers abusing their celebrities or whatever. Nothing compared to this Bollywood fella who was going absolutely apoplectic at me. So it'd probably be that, having to always do Bollywood dances.
Is this available on the internet? Can we see that on YouTube somewhere?
It will be. I've got it on my phone. I'll put it on the WhatsApp group later on because I'll find it. It's buried deep in my phone somewhere. The end product's actually pretty good. I nail it, and I'm proud of it.
Good for you.
Cheers, Chris. Who's up next?
Go on, out.
Go on then, Lee.
If you don't mind. So you mentioned music before, Swanny. So Dr. Comfort and the Revelations, are they still getting back? When's the?
You know what? I hope they do. The story behind that, Dr. Comfort and the Lurid Revelations, this was the band that I was the lead singer for. I was having a beer on a Tuesday night, as we all have at some point, with a load of lads, and we all played either guitar or drums or been in bands or toyed with it. And we were just at chat, why don't we just get a band together? It'd be brilliant. The local area, yeah, great. And it was all lads who were sort of kind of connected to Trent Bridge and Nottinghamshire County Cricket Club. And anyway, the next day, Andy Afford, who was sort of our band leader, phoned me up, went, you'll never guess, we've got a gig this Sunday. I phoned up a local bar. I've told him we're shit hot. And he said he'll buy our soundboard, he'll buy all our equipment, as long as we fill the place out. And so I knew we'd fill the place out because it's a spot. And as soon as we mentioned that we were doing it, they had people queuing up out the door. So this is on the Tuesday, he told us, we're on Sunday night. We'd never rehearsed. We didn't know what songs we were going to do. He booked a pub in Newark. He booked a room above a pub in Newark. And we drove there, and we just basically on the way there, everyone said, right, write down your 5 favourite songs and we'll see if any of them cross over. And it ended up being the biggest mishmash of like Bon Jovi, Oasis, The Jam. But it was, and we got there and we basically nailed about 5. So luckily these guys were really good musicians. So we were pretty tight from the off. The only issue was my vocals. I mean, I'm like Liam Gallagher. I'm not a great singer. I'm a good frontman, but not a great singer. But I give it my all. And so we ended up with like 4 or 5 songs that we had. And then we went up to do this gig. And honestly, can you imagine from never having done this before? It's a bar and there's probably 300 or 400 people. It is rammed, absolutely rammed. And everyone's going, Swanny, what are you doing? This is unbelievable. You're in a band. We never knew this. And I'm just going along thinking, shit, the beg. What have I done here? And we got up on the stage and the bloke Dave in the South Bank, big shout out to you there. He said, right, free drinks for you lads all night. Just shout out what you want. And so I just get up on stage and say, give me a Guinness. And I'd had 7 pints of Guinness by the time we were like 5 or 6 songs in. Of course, I'm at a wedding now. I'm having the time of my life. I think we did 5 songs.
Tie around the forehead.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'm like the bloke from The Commitments at this point. But it went down an absolute storm. He took 11.5 grand over the bar and said, right, you're now residents. You're here every week. And we did it for about 6 months. every night, every week. We would go and smash it. It was absolutely amazing. And then I got picked for England, and it messed it all up.
Bloody England international call-ups ruining everything.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great stuff. Steve, what's your question?
Well, I don't have a question because we've got a pile of questions from listeners.
Oh, I've heard we've got some questions this week.
So,
we have listeners.
So I'll have to sift through and see what I can get out. But the first one we've got, in fact, this one's just come in while we were recording, actually. And it's from Andrew in Toaster.
I know this is.
He would like to say, does Swanny put his cricket success down to not being good enough to be Spawn's first choice left back?
There you go. So that is Andrew Chester. That is the manager of No Polo, No Party. And yes, for those who don't know Andrew Chester, one of our managers, he was an exceptionally good amateur footballer with a sweet left foot, who also happened to look exactly like Richard Ashcroft at the time when the Verve were massive. I absolutely adore Chester. What a great lad. Filthy, though. I mean, some of the tackles he put in, he sort of mixed Stuart Pearce and Julian Dix. I used to think that was sort of the way he played the game. And he was the only person who could put his laces through the ball as like a 11, 12-year-old. His penalty was so hard, like keepers would get out of the way of it, even when we ever got a penalty. But Andrew Chester, legend. He pushed me into left midfield because he was at the back. And like I say, I was more of a rugby player than a footballer, but what a hero Chester is. And
his follow-up question is wine a good present to wrap up and leave under a tree at night before a party?
Yeah, apologies. There was a girl in our school called Kate Nash. Not the Kate Nash, who you all know. But Kate Nash. Me and Andrew Chester stole that bottle of wine from under that tree. And we necked it on the staircase. I do apologise, Mr. and Mrs. Nash, if someone was a bottle short on come Christmas morning. That was Mr. Swann's youngest son.
Right, another question. This one's from Mr. Bresnan in Yorkshire somewhere, I imagine. And he hasn't actually got a question because he's actually said nothing that he will answer or he will end up turning into a story all about me, and it's usually going to be something stupid.
See, bless him, Brez. You can see a pattern emerging here about Tim, can't you? Oh, he picked on me. Oh, no. I love Brez. Just because he didn't understand the LBW rule as an Ashes opening bowler, I do not hold that against him. It's a very tricky rule.
Yeah, you'd have thought he'd have picked it up, wouldn't you, really? Yeah.
I will tell you a quick story about Brez. We were building a house at the same time. Different houses, obviously. Him in Yorkshire, me down here. Brez is that man who's, I know a bloke. I can get you a deal. But you stay well away from Tim, obviously, for any of his deals. And I always remember saying, who's doing your windows? And I went, I've got a window company doing it. He goes, don't. I've got a bloke who'll do windows for you. $5,000, do entire house. $5,000. I went, Tim, that sounds dodgy as fuck. I'm not doing that, mate. No, seriously, $5,000. Anyway, so he built his house. I went, how's your house, mate? He goes, oh, I don't like it. Windows whistle. Oh, bless him.
Great stuff.
He's a legend. If you get him on here, absolute legend.
No, he's going to come on at some point. Yeah, so probably next week after this.
Yeah, good.
Have you got any more listeners' questions, or is that it for this
I don't
week?
think so. No.
That's it for this week. Good stuff. Well, how are you as a fan of football? If regular listeners to the podcast, of which you are not, Swanny, and we've got Sing When You Win and super fan. So every time we get a guest on, we test your footballing knowledge and see how many questions you can get correct in 90 seconds. So are you up for that?
Right. This is the bit I'm nervous about.
Don't be nervous. You've got 2 to beat to not be on the bottom.
Okay.
So we've got
I'm even more nervous
with a
now.
low bar. We're all good.
Very low.
Steve is going to be our official timer of the 90 seconds. And this week, shall we go? We'll give Lee a week off. Chris, you have your fingers in the air to be the official scorer. And what's the word that you'll shout, Steve, when we get to 90 seconds?
How's that?
How's that?
How's that? Brilliant. So yeah, the 90 seconds will start when I start asking questions. And if we get to the 90 seconds, I've started, so I'll finish, that kind of thing. So are we all good? Which former England internationals reached number 12 in the UK singles chart with the song Diamond Lights?
Waddle and Hoddle.
Yes.
Those diamond lights, darling, I love you. One of the greatest songs ever made. Carry on, sorry.
No
Wasting time.
You've got 2 points off that. Rangers tried to sign which superstar after Alex McLeish found out his ability through Football Manager?
I have no idea.
Pick a brilliant footballer.
Ronaldo.
Lionel Messi. The other one. Liverpool have won 6 Champions Leagues and Manchester United have won 3. But who are England's third most successful team in the competition?
Forest.
Yes. With 9 goals, who scored the most goals in a single European Championship tournament?
Schilacci.
Platini at Euro 84. That was a bit of a tricky one, that one. Which country has appeared in 3 World Cup finals but never won the competition?
3 World Cup finals?
Yeah.
Or the actual final?
The actual final, yeah.
Spain. No, it's bollocks.
Netherlands.
Sorry.
No.
Of course.
How many clubs competed in the first Premier League season?
How is he?
22.
22 is correct. Well done. So how many was that?
Well, you asked Hoddle and Waddle. Is that a point for Hoddle and a point for
each.
Waddle?
Yeah. A point for each.
Really?
Okay.
That was a double act, though, wasn't it?
Honestly,
Can't be. That's
I'm actually a quiz master, and
So we're not going to do that.
Hoddle and Waddle.
Come on, help me out.
Cool.
Sorry, give me.
Go on.
So what's the score?
What's the highest score at the moment?
6.
6. All right. Well, it's 4 then.
5, surely.
Give him 5 then.
No. That's with Hoddle and Waddle.
Right. Oh, okay.
That took it up to 5.
Yeah, I thought he got more than that. But we did this last week and we checked back.
There's always corruption.
In what
VAR again.
As long as I'm not bottom 3, I'm happy for once.
Yeah, you're near the top. Trust me, you're near the top. Well done. Let's move swiftly on then. So, update on Bletchley Scott FC. So, I don't know if you know, Swanny, but we sponsor on the WhatsApp group. We sponsor a under 15 boys football team, Bletchley Scott. We're not wearing the tops this week. But yeah,
Hang on, sorry, my dog's barking. My dog's called Bobby Robinson and he's barking. He says I got 6 in the quiz. Come here, Bobby.
You jumped up. Bobby knows. But yeah, they were coming off a victory the other week. And how do we think they got on last weekend against Woburn and Wavendon Hurricanes? That's who they played.
They sound amazing. I think they probably got absolutely battered by them.
I think you're right. Woburn and Wavendon Hurricanes got 9 and Bletchley Scott got 4.
Oh, entertaining game.
I take it this is all in the Bedfordshire area. This is Bletchley near Milton Keynes and Woburn.
Yeah, it's Milton Keynes area. Yeah, it is Milton Keynes area.
Good lads.
Yeah. But they're 7th out of 11 teams after 5 games in the league. And this weekend they go up against, you probably know this place, in this one, Tattenhall. Have you heard of that? Have I said that right?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, Tattenhall under 15s. They're 2nd in the league, so it's a tough game.
Sorry, I just had to run off and let him out.
No.
Stole a pack of Rich Tea biscuits earlier. I think it's gone through him.
Oh, lovely.
Good stuff. But as we always say, come on, Bletchley.
Come on, Bletchley.
Oh, come on, Bletchley.
Go on, lads.
Right, let's play. Now, normally we play a game of Shooting Stars at this time to close each week's podcast, where we look back at player profiles from Match Magazine, Shoot Magazine. You remember the magazines from the 80s, 90s in particular. But I thought we'd do something slightly different this week, Swanny, if that's all right. As you are a big sporting star, we thought we'd ask you the questions that they ask footballers in Match and Shoot Magazine. Are you good with that?
I love that. I always had Match. My brother bought Shoot, so I had Match.
Good stuff. Yeah, I used to read 90 Minutes a lot. I used to like that magazine. Don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, that was the posh one that came in when you were a bit older.
Yeah, when you were a bit older.
That's because you're too young, Jamie.
Possibly. I'm not. I'm dead.
90 Minutes had a bit of an edge. It was a little bit edgy.
Yeah. It would say slightly rude words, but not really bad ones.
Yeah.
We were reading Loaded and FHM by then.
Yeah, you'd moved on to the strong stuff.
I'm not saying we didn't read that as well.
They used to advertise Loaded in 90 Minutes. I remember that much. They were trying to get you to that next level. Right, moving swiftly on. So these are random quick-fire questions, Swanny, that they would ask if you were a footballer in your heyday, and they would some journal would have asked you these questions. So, what is your favourite article of clothing and why?
My underpants, because I wore the same pair to every single day's cricket I ever played for England, because I was superstitious. They worked on day one, so I wore them to every game I played for the rest of my career. I wish I was joking.
How many days of play?
So that would be, I'd play it. I just went to the ground, but that would be about 500 times. Wow. They didn't have much support by the end, put it that way.
Brilliant. Love it.
Thread there.
What would you do if you could be invisible for a day?
I'd probably just go and rob a bank, to be honest. Yeah, exactly. I'd rob a bank and then use the money for various means.
That's the classic answer. What, if anything, frightens you?
Cockroaches. Can't stand them. Absolutely hate the things. I once saw one dead on its back in Australia, and it was like the size of your head. It was ridiculous.
Have you ever been mistaken for anyone else?
Yes, Phil Tufnell, a lot.
If you could, which day of the week do you dislike most?
Oh, Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon used to be double physics at school. Tuesday Red Week at school. It was the worst afternoon. It's miles away from the weekend. We didn't play sport on Wednesdays like posh schools did at my place. I hated Tuesdays.
Well, the time of recording is Tuesday, so hopefully you're not hitting this. What do you want for your birthday?
My birthday? Well, I asked my mum for a mountain bike when I was 11. She promised me if I got my dad to move to Toaster, I could have a mountain bike. And we did move that bike. So I still want it. Mum, if you're listening, an 18-gear Shimano giant mountain bike would be brilliant. They're 200 quid in Halfords.
Nice.
200 quid, bargain. If you were competing in Mastermind, what would your specialist subject be?
I've already actually done Mastermind and I won it. And my chosen specialist subject was Star Wars episodes 4 to 6.
Yes.
How did you get on?
You can see that on YouTube.
I'll watch that then. How did you get on?
I won. I beat the Vicar from Gogglebox, one of Mike and the Mechanics, and a Radio 2 DJ who did Echo and the Bunnymen as a chosen specialised subject and got 1 point. It was a car crash.
Ooh.
Janet Peel.
Yeah. And the last question, I'll go with the classic question. What was your first car and how much did it cost?
I'll tell you, the first car I drove was my dad's Volvo estate, the Volvo 240 Toursdale. But the first car I ever bought was actually, I'd played a bit of cricket by then. It was an Audi A4 convertible, and it was 24 grand.
Very good. Yeah,
I was like 25, but I'd been on an England tour by then. I was doing all right.
Yeah, nice.
Before anyone thinks that was my car at 17.
Well, times have changed. Back in the profiles, they were buying Datsun Sunnies for 150 quid back in the 80s. Yeah.
I did write off my mum's Mini Metro at Lillishall. I just picked up my England under-19 kit, reversed into a big concrete line, and wrote off a red Rover 1.4 diesel Metro. Sorry,
Is
Mum.
that because she didn't buy you a bike?
Yes, exactly. And I'll do it again, Mavis.
Love it. Brilliant.
That's the title of the episode. I'd do
Yeah,
it again, Mavis.
Yeah, I think we've got it right there. Thank you. So yeah, those are the random strong journalistic questions back in the day in Shoot and Match magazine. But we couldn't have you on, Swanny, without just asking you the obvious question. How good is it to win the Ashes? Just want to hear it.
It's amazing. Truly, let me tell you a very quick story. First time I won the Ashes, 2009. All I'd ever wanted to do was win the Ashes. As a little kid growing up, desperate. That's like the World Cup for a cricketer. And we got to do it. It was that famous day when Andrew Flintoff ran out Ricky Ponting. We were at the Oval. It was a baking hot day. And it took us about 6 hours to bowl Australia out. I took the wicket to win the Ashes. So it was absolutely buzzing. Yeah. And we did a lap of honour. And there's like 25,000 Cockneys all on their feet, all in Manchester United shirts. And and as we walked around, they're playing songs like Rule Britannia, Land of Hope and Glory, all stuff like this. At the 150-foot St George's Cross flag being put on the outfield, it was ridiculously like patriotic and everything.
Yeah.
But all I wanted to do was get my hands on the actual Ashes urn, on that famous little trophy.
Yeah.
So when we got round to the presentation, I barged my way to the front. So I stood next to Andrew Strauss. And as he lifted this tiny little trophy up in the air, there was a sticker on the base of it that said Lord Shot, £4.95. They don't actually give you they don't give you the real trophy. So the best moment of my life was completely ruined. There's this picture of everyone punching the air and screaming, and me just looking completely fucked off. So yeah,
is that just because they think it was going to get
the best day of my life and the worst?
Is that because they think the worst of players and they know that it's going to get battered? I'm thinking back to when Scotland won the Calcutta Cup and John Jeffrey. I'm from Kelso in the Borders, and John Jeffrey ended up playing rugby with the Calcutta Cup down the Royal Mile. And after that, they don't let
they're doing the proper one.
Yeah,
I think it's because our opponents are Australians and they're checkered past a villainy that probably don't trust them. So. Rightly, it stays in the MCC Museum.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thank you so much, Swanny, for coming on and being an amazing guest this week on Singing
I've
You
loved
In.
it. Sorry about the lack of video.
No, it's great. We don't want to see you naked. It's fine.
We're happy with the video.
We'll take photos. It's fine.
But remember, you can
use Photoshop.
Yes.
Thanks, yeah.
But yeah, you can follow us on Twitter at SWYW_FPL. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment, ask us an FPL question. We might discuss it in next week's show, where we'll be joined by another top guest. But thank you once again to Swanny. Good luck with the season. Good luck with your team.
Thank you very much. Onwards and upwards. How are the lads?
We are, exactly. Thank you. And thanks again to Lee, Chris, and Steve. Enjoy your footballing week and keep on singing and keep on winning.